You're listening to Filling the Storehouse podcast. I'm David.
And I'm Stuart, and we want to walk with you on the journey to living the abundant life through faith, family, and freedom. Our goal is to refine our why while helping you find yours. Together, achieve our best and highest purpose. In the end, we'll drive each other to intentionally fill our storehouse.
Hey, what's up, everybody? This is Stu.
Hi, this is David.
And hey, we got some new social media channels. We got a new Instagram account just for Filling the Storehouse.
Heck yeah, check us at Insta, on the Instas, at Filling the Storehouse Podcast.
Yep, and we got TikTok.
Tickety talk. Check us out at Filling the Storehouse. And you gotta dance when you check us. Bam!
Check it.
Wow, Dave. I don't know about you, man, but I am super pumped for this podcast episode. Like, I've been super pumped since like 2:30 in the morning.
I've been super pumped for John, when we started talking about this, you had mentioned this months ago. And then we talked about kind of the whole getting the ball rolling, having you and Ana on the show. And I've been super excited since then. It's, we're just so honored that you guys would take the time to be with us. John, you've been on the show before, so two-time guest. And now that you brought Ana to really up the game and turn it to a varsity level show. So we're really excited to have you guys.
Super excited.
I'm not even sure you need me here at all. Right? Exactly. Yes.
Well, I mean, I'm sure Ana will spend most of the time explaining the book. So, we'll just have you in the background, just listening along. So I have to tell you a funny story that led me to waking up at 2:30 to start writing notes about today's podcast. My son, he's 4 years old. And the other night we were having dinner and we were serving green beans for dinner. And he said the phrase, "Daddy, I hate green beans." And we're like, "Hey, no. Let's try to rephrase that. Let's use words like, maybe I don't really like this, or this is not my favorite." And so, we went along with dinner, and this morning at 2:30 in the morning, he came into our bedroom and he woke up my wife. And of course I heard him too. He's like, "Mommy, I do not prefer pickles." Totally random.
Nicely done.
Hey, man. 2:30 in the morning. He used the phrase correctly.
Hey.
He doesn't prefer pickles.
He wanted to get that out, dude. Like, that was
Gold star, man.
him.
Yeah.
That guy needs like a silver star or something.
Yep. So I've been up at 2:30, didn't go back to sleep, and I've been preparing for this podcast. So no pressure, David. I'm ready to go. How about you?
Hey, and here's the thing. We kind of talked about this earlier, the differences between Stu and I. I have been preparing for, as I said, for 2 months. So I don't need to last minute cram. I don't need to wake up at 2:30. I've been ready to go. All right. Since we talked about it. But hey, this is about John and Ana. And,
it is.
And you guys wrote this amazing book, The Go-Giver Marriage. We're going to get into a lot of different topics. But if you guys don't mind, before we kick it off, just tell us a little bit about yourselves and just some, just for context, how long you've been married and some of those details that I think will really inform the conversation.
Why don't you start first, sweetheart? I've already talked.
No. I love the way you tell the story.
All right. Okay. Well, let's see.
Of how we met.
So, us. I'll tell you about us first, because this is where the book starts. So in our 20s, very recently, in our 20s, we went to a party one night, not knowing each other, went to a function of educational organization we were both connected to. And across the crowded room, across the floor, we spotted each other like it was a Tony and Maria moment at a West Side Story. I looked at her and I thought, wow, she looks adorable. She looks amazing. And she looked at me and I don't know what she thought. I'm not sure I want to hear, but it probably wasn't very good. Anyway, we never met. I never knew her name. I never learned her name. And we didn't speak a word to each other. We never got closer than across the room. Fast forward 20 years. We bumped into each other at a business event we were both connected to. And we ended up being business colleagues in a couple of different ventures. And we became fast friends. It was like, oh, that's that woman I saw across the room. We became fast friends. It seemed like everything that either one of us was thinking of, the other one was also thinking of. We had a billion things to talk about. We just went like 90 miles an hour in our conversations. We just clicked like peas and carrots, as Forrest Gump would say. And And after a few years of being close business partners and great friends, there was suddenly this, I realized that there was this weird sort of spark in the room. And the spark was, we were like madly in love with each other. And years went by. We didn't get married right away. We courted, as they say. We hung out as a couple and got to know each other for 10 years before we finally got married. So we've been together for 25 years. But our status as a married couple has only been for the last portion of that 25 years, the last 12, 13, 14 years. I better get that number right, actually. 12. I said the number 12, 12 years.
Yeah, get that right, John. Come on, man.
13.
That's what I meant when I said 12. I need to give you some space to correct that.
We knew what you meant. We knew what you meant.
Yeah, that's it. And here we are. Here we are with a book on marriage yet.
That's great. That's great. Ana, I know you have kind of a past in marriage counseling and therapy, and I'm assuming that you're the brains behind this book. But if you guys could, tell us about what led you to this book, and give us the kind of the main synopsis and the story about this book.
I am the first reader on every book that John writes.
Nice.
So the minute it comes off the printer, I am the first person that reads it. So it was probably 15 or 16 years ago that he printed off the Go-Giver, the original Go-Giver. And I read it and I was completely moved over, because it's a phenomenal book. For anyone who hasn't read it, it'll change your life.
Agree.
So I read the Go-Giver. I was like, wow. And I said to him, I have spent a long time trying to teach couples how to be generous with each other, how to give each other the benefit of the doubt, how to always come from a place of compassion, how to, stay in control of your emotions. And it's all about generosity. I said, this would make an incredible book about marriage. And that's the moment. We go for these long 4 or 5 mile walks every day. And we started talking about what the secrets to a happy marriage are right away. And John is a brilliant parable writer, so you don't want to give the credit to me. I knew that it had to have a story at the front. And so the first half of the book is called The Parable. The second half of the book is called The Practice. And the practice is where all 5 secrets get explained in terms of their psychological and developmental theory, and also how to put them into action in your marriage. So it's a real how-to guide, how to take these secrets and make them work. And, I wanted the book to be clinically solid. I didn't want the book to just be any kind of fluff. I wanted every single secret to have deep, deep meaning in terms of how it would impact the marriage. And so we really spent a lot of time crafting it, 15, 16 years.
And we can tell.
Yeah. And I think one of the things that I love and that just fascinates me is the ability to take these deep principles and turn them into a story, the creative, magic behind that, the skill. I mean, it's a pure skill, right? And the Go-Giver book, it was life-changing for Stuart and I. I mean, I hang the principles up, I had them in my office at Generated Conversation. Now that we're at home, I'm gonna have to get a nicer version than just a printout, John. So if you can help me with that. But they're so formative, and it was such a transforming thing for our lives personally. But this book is just an extension to that. And I love how you said, Ana, that the Go-Giver can go into marriage, and you can use the concepts in marriage or relationships. But this book, it's the same thing. I don't want anybody to be fooled. Go-Giver Marriage, you can use this to apply to business partnerships, parenting, everything else as well. But my question in all that is, is it just purely skill? Like, how do you take that clinical side and you make it into a parable, and you develop these 5 secrets that are consumable, actionable? And I just am so fascinated by that process, because I don't think I could do it. I know Stu could not do it, but I really struggle with figuring out how I could ever do something like
I'm
that.
an X's and O's numbers guy, so definitely not.
Hey, my son is a aeronautical engineer, So I must have that gene somewhere in me, or maybe it wasn't me. Anyway,
He does. He does.
But it's great. It's such a great question, and I won't spend half an hour on it, but it sure would be fun to, wouldn't it? My mom was a teacher of Greek mythology, and she was in love with all things Greek. My dad was a musicologist, and I learned from him, sort of in a complex piece of music, how does it work? What are the key notes? What are the key passages? What's the structural underpinnings that make it evoke the emotion it does? And so I grew up taking things apart in terms of figuring out what's essential. How does it work? And there's nothing I love more than taking some complex morass of human experience and trying to kind of spin out the essence of it, the principles of it. That's what I've been doing my whole adult life. The Go-Giver, and you guys know the story. When Bob and I started the Go-Giver, Bob had this idea for a story called The Go-Giver. And there was this principle of giving more in value than you're taking payment, or putting your focus on the other person, the spirit of generosity. And by the time I was finished messing around with that and had a whole manuscript, that one had become 5, the 5 laws of stratospheric success. And picking those 5 principles out of the story and then picking the story out, it's more fun than you could have on a Saturday afternoon. So when we got to this story, and quite a drum roll, Anna's right, 15 years, we kept talking about it. She was her idea. She said, we should write a Go-Giver book about marriage. And as I am with most great ideas, I was like, I don't know. and as I am always with great ideas that come from Anna, I was eventually like, yeah, we should do this. And so we finally started to put the story together. We wanted it to be real. The people in this story, Tom and Tess, it starts out about a young couple who aren't in a major crisis. Their marriage isn't on the rocks, but it's not what it could be. It's suffering. It's got cracks in the wall. It's one character describes it like a nagging cough that could turn into something worse. And we did that intentionally because that's where a lot of people are. A lot of people's marriages, they're not terrible. If you ask them, are you happy? They'd probably say, yeah, but it's not what it should be, not what it could be. Maybe it isn't what it once was. Because a lot of us understood these 5 secrets intuitively, or at least some of them, when we were first in love. Because when you're first in love, you're crazy and you throw logic out the window and you just do anything for this person, right? But then life interferes and you start forgetting what you know. You start forgetting what you have, and you start taking for granted where you are. And so we just wanted to bring that magic back, and that's the goal of the story, is to help evoke the feeling of what it's like to be in love. And then what it's like to have that love threatened by circumstance, and what it takes to pull those threads back and make it work. Sweetheart.
Also, if I may add to that, I like to tell clients and whoever we're teaching that we all arrive at marriages with a lot of suitcases of emotional baggage. And those suitcases are nice and they're zipped up and perfect when you get married. But then in the first 5 to 7 years, they start unpacking. Without your knowledge, all your emotional material starts to come into the marriage. And the intimacy of the marriage is either enhanced because you have compassion for each other's material and you talk about it and you share. If somebody's had a brutal childhood, and I don't mean like brutal as in being beaten. They could have a mother who was depressed. They could have a father who was hypercritical and who dismissed them a lot. Those things, you carry those things. And they either show up in the person that you marry or they show up in you. But either way, they show up. And what happens is you get into your typical patterns of how do you shut down? How do you stop this? How do you dismiss it? You just get into all the ways that you will block intimacy to block these emotions and feelings. And so if you don't get whole with yourself before you get married and or are open to your own personal growth, then all of your relationships will be an attempt to heal yourself. And that's one of the primary focuses of the book, is that it's not sugar coated. difficult stuff happens. People have miscarriages, they have children with special needs, they have bankruptcies, people lose their jobs, parents die, stuff happens. And that's all the stuff that you have to take in stride along with your spouse, best friend, and your co-team member, in the sense of, you're running a household together, you're raising children together, whatever the dynamic is. There's so much more than just you, but your emotional material will enter the picture. Even as a father, if you were severely neglected as a child, you don't even know how to be a father. It's a new discovery.
Yeah, it's so interesting. And John, you're right. I mean, I think this story will resonate with so many couples, so many that, just like you said, I will go out on a limb and make an assumption here that most marriages aren't the best that they could be. And there's always more that we can give to a marriage to increase that love that we have for each other, from, on what you said from the very beginning, how it was at the very beginning when we started, when we first felt that love, right? So I kind of want to get into, if you don't mind, I don't want to ruin the book, but I do want to talk just a little bit about these 5 laws. If we could kind of just talk about them and break them down a little bit. And then I'm very curious, which one is your favorite of these 5 laws? I want to hear from both of you on that.
Well, let's take them one at a time, and let's start with somebody who knows more than I do. My love.
All the secrets are designed with developmental theory underneath them. And what developmental theory is, in a nutshell, is what you needed as a child and as an adolescent. You also need it as a young adult and as a full adult. So all these core needs, like when you're a brand new baby, there's nothing better than having somebody looking down into your face, cooing at you, blowing kisses on your belly, and telling you that you're the best baby that has ever arrived in the world. And, you're just like, because the love is so tangible, so real, and because you feel so deeply seen and witnessed. The need to be witnessed is the most powerful need that we have. We want to be seen, heard, and understood. And those things often get caught in the daily life of being busy and working and everything else. The opportunities to witness are there, but we don't take them. So the first secret is really my favorite secret, since you asked. It's my favorite secret, simply because it's appreciation. And what we mean by appreciation is really looking at your spouse and taking the time to really notice the things that you love about them. And then when you notice those things, take a moment to tell them. And I don't mean things like, walking through the kitchen and saying things like, "Hey, babe, you're looking good today." This is not an authentic moment of appreciation. It's a flirtation, and yes, it's appreciation in a certain way, but I'm talking about really taking a moment to be authentic. And a great story I have is from a client where the father took the kids Christmas shopping, and the wife had had a really rough week at work. She had a big job due, and he took them off on Friday night. He got all their Christmas shopping done. Then he came home and marched them upstairs and helped them wrap all the presents. And then they came bouncing down the stairs with secrets that mommy didn't know about. And they put them all under the tree, and the kids were ecstatic. They'd had ice cream. I mean, it had been a great night. And she just about cried. She was so happy. So the next morning when they were having coffee, she really took the time to let him know that not only was he her hero, but that he had really just, like watching him as a father was so moving to her that she said, "I can't tell you, this is the kind of father I always dreamed of having for my children. I wanted a father who really attended to them, who loved them, who played with them. I wanted my daughter to feel like this was the first man she would fall in love with. And, the way you are with our kids is just so powerful. I just want you to know I love you and you're an incredible dad." And he was like, she said he never runs out of things to say, but he was so blown off his chair. She said she could see him tearing up. And, moments like that are really powerful between a couple, and we all need them. Who doesn't feel insecure as a parent?
I'm like tearing up with the story, just the impact of imagining that moment. And as Stu and I are, we're these military dudes, but we're crybabies, so don't be fooled, especially Stu. But I think that's so powerful, John, and we'll I'll turn it over to you for yours as well. But I think just envisioning the power of that moment, and then as picturing as a father receiving words of affirmation like that, I would be speechless as well. It would completely take me aback, but also be so fulfilling,
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's so powerful. And the thing that Donna said, this appreciation, is that it sounds so simple. And the truth is, it is. And again, like I said earlier, most of us were doing this when we were first in love, right? When we were first courting. Those early weeks, and days when you were first with your sweetheart, you couldn't say enough good things, right? You couldn't bring enough flowers. You couldn't go to enough movies. You couldn't do enough kind gestures. You couldn't, pull out enough chairs. You couldn't tell her how beautiful she was and how amazing she was and how thoughtful she was and how great she was and how smart she was and how she was the best dancer you've ever seen. It just comes naturally. You're not even BSing. You're like, you mean it all. Because it's all true. It's all real. There's a line in the book that says, love is blind, right? No, love is not blind. Love has the eyes of an eagle. When you're in love, it's not that you're under an illusion. It's not that there's some veil over your eyes. It's that you have this X-ray vision where you actually see the incredible beauty in the other person. And it's really there, all that stuff you see. This is an amazing person. Every human being is an amazing person, right? And you have the privilege of seeing it. And then, like Anna said, the years go by, and you have bills, and you have kids, and you have stress, and you have tough times at work, and so you park that in the back burner, assuming that she already knows you think she's great, or that he's great. Well, yeah, but no, you got to keep saying it, because every one of us still has that little child inside, lying there in the blanket, needing to be told how amazing they are. That's all still us.
And
so go ahead.
Can I add something to that?
Please.
That's specific to military audiences, because I have sat on the board of directors for a national nonprofit, for a military nonprofit. And I've also spent a lot of time working with men who have what I call covert depression. And covert depression is the part of you that works out to excess because you don't feel good enough if you're not really stacked. It's the part of you that is insecure about who you are as a father, but you don't want anyone to know it. And it's the part of you that doesn't feel quite like you're succeeding in your career, but you're also hiding that. And so you're working so hard to keep all this insecurity in all kinds of areas under wraps, that you're walking around with a mild depression that you're just keeping completely hidden. And it affects every relationship you're in. But I find that in the military, there's so much about honor and being your best. And it's a very high standard. And I think that men are so prone to striving to really high standards and holding themselves accountable. And then in the comparing themselves to others or comparing themselves in the workplace or whatever, they can feel as though they're not measuring up. And I just think it's a unique kind of stress that is very, very, very difficult.
Yeah, that's incredibly insightful. And thank you for sharing that. I've not thought of it, that way. The one encouraging thing is that Stu, with the stacked part of it, it's not really an issue for him.
Not an issue.
But no,
I got a hurt shoulder. I haven't,
Yeah, that's right.
my
That's right.
excuse.
Always struggling to hold yourself to a lower standard. I understand.
But just such a that's so insightful, and I think powerful, and I hope our listeners will, a lot of them are military. I hope they rewind, and even if you're not military, those things I think could be characteristic of really, especially the guys that we surround ourselves with, mostly men. They're all striving to be so good, and that's the language we use, to be better. How do we be our best? How do we how do we growth mindset? And well, there's a dark side to that as well. And it's the, I think you naming that is so powerful for us. So thank you for that.
It also raises addictions like pornography and other addictions, because when you're depressed, you tend to go toward things that are what I call addictions, attachments, things that you kind of keep off to the side. It's your little dark side, but you keep it simply because it's a place where you can kind of go mindless. You know, you can just be in sort of the pleasure moment of watching something or being attached to something and not have to deal, you know. So it's an escape, if you will, but an escape from reality that's not going to serve you in the long run. And women have the same kinds of stresses. And I just want to mention that because women that are listening need to know you do not need to be thinner. You know, it's like there's so much emphasis on being really thin and really buff and working out all the time and having the perfect body and staying young and getting Botox and, you know, whatever it is to make yourself look and be acceptable by society's standards, have a big Instagram profile, et cetera, et cetera. It's all, forgive me for saying it quite this way, it's all BS. It's all stuff it's a narrative that was created by society. It has nothing to do with you.
Yeah, media has a strong hold on that for sure. It's kind of crazy. Well, how about number 2? What's the second law?
I was going to say, you see why
before we go into that real quick, I just want to highlight what I love about these laws too is that they're some of them are you know, they are the solution to some of these issues. So if you feel appreciated, if somebody is appreciating you, Stuart, if you would appreciate me as a business partner, maybe I would be built up a little more and not have to look elsewhere for, you know, for better friends. But in all seriousness, if you, and it's not about you, right? It's about if your wife or your husband or whomever is struggling with these things, and you may not even know it because it's their dark place or what, you know, it's hidden from you. But if you are showing appreciation, you know, the first secret, you may be intentionally, but inadvertently giving them a solution and a path to healing that you don't even know. It's so empowering. So I love that. I also love and appreciation as the first secret because it's so powerful.
Yeah, and you just, you know, you pointed out something really, really powerful there within that, which is you often don't know what's going on with the other person. In fact, you usually don't know what's going on with you. You don't really know what's going on with the other person. None of us do, you know. One a saying that I heard that I love is be kind. The other person is almost always suffering more than they let on. And this is just true. And that is actually a beautiful segue to one of my favorite secrets. You know, I have 5 favorites among these 5 secrets. One of them, it's like, you know, you have 5 kids. Who's your favorite? But one of them is, you know, speaks to what you were just talking about. It's number 3, and we call it allow. And, you know, going back to being a kid, let's say you're being a kid and you throw a tantrum and you know you're being a bad boy or a bad girl. You know you're out of control. You know that you've lost it on some level, but you just can't help it. You just do it. You're out of control. And what do your parents do? They lock you in the room and say, you're awful. I never want to see you again. We hope that they don't do that. What they probably do is they just leave you alone. They say, well, look at that. Wow. And then when you're finished, they say, we all done? Okay. And they move on and they do something else. We also need that as adults. The third secret is called allow. And it's not about tantrums. What allow is about, it's about the in sickness part of in sickness and in health. It's about the poor part of for richer or for poorer. It's about the worst part of for better or for worse. It's about the times when we're suffering stress, when times are difficult, when your spouse has something going on. And this can be a big deal. Like they have something going on, like, you know, a friend died or a parent died or they lost their job or they've been through a surgery, something big. Or it can be like they didn't sleep last night. Something is just at the moment, this day happens to be taking them out a little bit. The third secret is about giving them space, giving them compassion, giving them a little bit of extra cushion. It's giving them the benefit of the doubt and assuming that they mean well. So like if your spouse is a little bit snippy, instead of getting snippy right back, getting aggressive with them or getting defensive with yourself, and either one, it doesn't matter if you're aggressive or you're defensive, what you're doing is separating the two of you. Instead of doing either of those things, taking a breath and having the emotional intelligence or the maturity to say in yourself, this is their snippiness, not mine. Something's up with them and I don't know what it is, and it doesn't matter. I'm just going to be here for them. And then you're just there for them. That might mean taking an extra load of chores, even though it wasn't agreed that you do that, you do it anyway. Or it might mean, like Ana said, taking the kids out to go Christmas shopping just to take a load off the poor woman's, plate. It might mean bringing them a cup of tea. It might mean offering a kind word. It might mean just smiling or just being there. We have a joke between us about the classic strategy when your wife has had a very difficult time and she comes back from her work or her office or her situation, and she's going on and on about how terrible it was, or she's talking and talking and talking, that what you do is you just listen and you nod and you listen and you say nothing, except every 3 minutes you go, the bastards. And then you say nothing for another 3 minutes. And then you just say, the bastards. And then you do that awesome. as long as the conversation takes. When the conversation is over, you are the best husband in the world.
What if you're talking about your kid? What if you're talking about your kids?
The little snots. I'm not sure what you say. But there's actually there's not that little snots.
Little snots. I like that.
Those snots, yeah. There. She never heard me say that. Apparently, my wife has been taken aback. There's a moment like this in the story, actually, and I want to say that in the parable, the story about Tom and Tess and the very wise people that they meet. In the story, Tom is going for the business interview of his life, so it's like the most important day in his life in a way. And as the day unrolls, both Tom and his wife Tess start to realize that things aren't as well in their marriage as they'd like them to be, and start to learn these 5 secrets. But there's a kind of like a fairy tale or a little story within the story, because one of the characters, the guy who's interviewing Tom for the job, starts to tell this story out of left field, this little fable. And in that story, which is about a princess and a young man, there's a day where every day the young man goes out and works on bridges and roads, and the princess stays home and paints pictures, which she sells. This is not a wealthy princess, and not that kind of fairy tale. And one day he comes home from work and he finds her in bed sobbing. The curtains are drawn. Her painting is a mess, drying, chaos in the living room. The stove is dark. There's no dinner, and he doesn't know what to do. And he tries to cheer her up, and she's inconsolable. And he tries to do something nice for her, and she just projects it. And so he goes into the kitchen and he makes a pot of soup, which he doesn't know how to do. He's a terrible cook, and he makes a mess out of it. And he brings it up to her anyway, and he leaves it in the side of the bed. And he goes to bed feeling terrible about himself, wondering what he did wrong. Of course, he did nothing wrong. But he gets up the next morning and the shades are drawn, the sun is shining, and she says, I just want to thank you for being so understanding last night. And he kind of feels like, yeah, I'm not sure if I was really understanding, but he was. He just gave her space. He didn't get in her face and say, what's wrong? Why are you crying? Come on, talk to me. He didn't try to control her or force her to be the way he thought she should be. He just let her be the way she was, without knowing why, without understanding it. The opposite of allow, and every one of these secrets has its dark opposite. The opposite of allow is control. And one of our missions, if we have a mission in this book, and we have many missions, one of our missions in this book is to show people that the impulse to try to control your spouse, though it's natural in some ways, it's really destructive. It gets you both nowhere. It just hurts. You can't control the other person. And the opposite of control is to allow. Give them space, let them be themselves.
And that control is the hallmark of codependence.
Yeah.
It's the person who says, I love you, but I'm not really attracted to you sexually. And the extra 20 pounds you're carrying is just not working for me.
Bad move, dude.
Yeah, it's like, I'm sorry, but she just had a baby. And even if she didn't, it's not your domain. It really is her decision. And she is the one that has to want, or he is the one that has to want. I've seen it go both ways.
Yeah.
Where, the guy is gaining weight or becoming, less, healthy for himself. And those are things that, if you spend your time trying to control your spouse or trying to make them into the picture perfect person that you think they should be, then you've got a dynamic in the marriage that's really unhealthy.
Can I jump in and say something real fast, sweetheart? I guess I just thought of this. I've never said this in a podcast before. When we were first together, I was a heavy smoker. I've been smoking for years. My mom was a heavy smoker. And Ana never said, man, I wish you would quit. Not once. She did let me know very gently and subtly, but clearly, she let me know several times that it would be really hard for her long term if I kept smoking, because she had seen relatives die of lung cancer and emphysema and congestive heart failure, and she knew what that looked like, and she didn't think she could handle it if that was my story. But that was it. And then she said nothing. She left me alone. And I mean, looking back, I marvel at that, because I know how torturous it was for her, but she didn't try to force me. She didn't do anything. And so I quit. And, I never looked back. And, I'm so blessed. It's like, good grief, I don't even know if I'd be here now if I kept smoking the way I was then. But I have such tremendous admiration for her. I learned a lot from her in that. And it applies in so many ways. We don't try to make each other into the person that we think they should be. It's not how marriage works, not how a relationship works.
That's so good. I get in trouble a lot because I try to fix things, and I think this is a challenge. Yeah. This is a challenge for leaders, for military, yes, especially, right? That are, yeah, we are presented a problem and we try to fix it. That's what we do. And I try to do, yes, that with my wife and in our marriage. And, she has something that's going on. She's complaining about something. Well, what's the first thing I do? I try to offer a solution. I try to fix it. And yes, I get in trouble all the time. And she's like, honey, just listen. Just don't try to solve my problem. Just listen. Just exactly like you're saying, John. Just yes, shut up and listen. Say those little snots, something like that. I love it. I need to learn that. That is, yes, that's good. David does the same thing. He tries to fix me all the time too. So.
Yeah. Well,
yeah, but that's different, and we won't get into that because I think there's some self-awareness, some accountability things that are pretty strong. that Stu needs a lot of help, right? Stu needs a lot of help, but
I understand.
No, I think that's one of the things I thought was funny, and I definitely don't want to go too much in the parable because it's such a good story, but I think my favorite part of the story you told about Allow was the next morning. I think the wife, the princess also acknowledged, she's like, that was really good soup. and he's like, that was a horrible soup. I'm a horrible cook. It could not have been good. But I think it just shows, and the details that you guys added into these stories is just beautiful. I love it. But that little sentiment was more to do with not the flavor of the soup it was the effort. It was the love. It was the merits of The Secret of Allow. And yes, I just, that line I think I laughed out loud when I read it. I don't know why, it just tickled me and stuck in my mind, but it's oftentimes the effort that really brings the most flavor and meaning and beauty. It's not necessarily what you produce, which is good because Stu doesn't really produce much well. So
I love the things you pick up, by the way, Dave. I love the things you pick up in stories. And it's funny because you talk about the soup. For years, I would hear Ana talking with friends on the phone in the other room, and I would hear her say, John brings me a cup of tea every morning in bed. And I've heard her say it on a number of podcasts, talking about, and one of the other secrets in the book. She says every morning he brings me this cup of hot tea, and I don't have to get out of bed. I can just sit in bed with the covers around me. I can sit there with my phone or my book or my computer or whatever, and he brings me this tea. And you think about it, it's like, it's hot water with a tea bag in it and a cup. It's like, it's not that big a deal, right? But it is. It's such a big deal. There's this beautiful story about Jimmy Carter and his wife Rosalind, where they made a bet once, and we heard them tell the story on some broadcast or other. They made a bet about something, and he lost. And he said, "Okay, I lost. So what do you want for your prize?" She said, "I want you to bring me a cup of coffee every morning in bed for the rest of my life." So he did. Every morning he brings her a cup of coffee. we thought, hey, they stole our line. That's what awesome. We do. Little
so
things.
There's one principle that's different from the others. This fifth principle, and
Yeah.
and I've noticed that that's similar in some of the other books, well, actually all of the books, right? There's one principle that's counterintuitive to the others. If you could please talk about that a little bit, and why is it different, and what is it?
Every Go-Giver book, the fifth principle is counterintuitive, as you say, and something that you have to really think about and or consider how you're going to adapt it. In the original Go-Giver, it's the first four laws of stratospheric success are about giving. But the fifth one is about receiving. And there's a lot of people that have written to us. I mean, the book has sold over 1 million copies. People write to us all the time saying, you know, I'm really good with the first four secrets, but that fifth one, man, I'm still trying to figure out how to receive. Yeah, it's hard. So in the marriage, when people get married, they really want to almost merge. They want to have this really powerful bond. And a lot of people go into a marriage expecting the marriage to give them the nourishment that they need personally. And so the fifth secret is counterintuitive. It's not about giving to your spouse, it's about giving to yourself. And it is specifically to grow. And I know you guys, this podcast is all about growth mindset and how to, you know, keep your life moving forward and growing. Well, it doesn't matter if you're a man or a woman, and it doesn't matter what that growing looks like. You know, for some people, like for all of my life, I've not only been studying gourmet cooking with anyone I could study with, but I've also gotten into gardening in a deep way and growing everything from vegetables to all kinds of amazing flowers, and painting and photography. And, you know, it's like if you remain curious, your life will be so rich. And there's a phrase from way back in the 17 and 1800s, they would speak about a woman who had many, many talents as somebody who was a Renaissance woman, somebody who thought outside the box, who was always looking for new creative ways to express herself. Well, the same is true for men. You know, it's like I've met men who took up something as strange as snowshoeing in the winter and taking nature photographs. And I have a friend who in his 70s, he took up nature photography, and he was snowshoeing all over these backwoods. He caught photographs of hawks, eagles, you know, mountain lions. I mean, beautiful, beautiful fog in the forest. I mean, just the most stunning photographs you've ever seen. I mean, he became a master photographer in his 70s and 80s, and his photographs live on. He's gone now, but his photographs live on, and they're amazing. And it was like it wasn't a career, it was an avocation. But an avocation can be a very, very strong passion. And so we really encourage every married couple, don't try to find all your needs in the marriage. Find your needs for yourself. What is it that drives you creatively? What is it that makes your heart sparkle with excitement and enthusiasm? And not something like, you know, being a social media influencer per se, but maybe you have content that turns you into one because you are a deep thinker and you've really studied some particular study and you're putting that out and people are loving it. So it's all about just expressing yourself in the ways that are authentic to you. But as long as you keep growing, the flip side to it is that, you know, if you keep growing, you become more attractive as the years go by. I mean, there's nothing sexier than a woman who's in her 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, or 70s, who's not only kept growing, but her husband has, you know, a total sparkle in his eye because he finds her more beautiful by the day because of all the ways that she's grown. And she's more interesting. She's a new woman every day. And the same is true for men. Don't get stuck in your rut watching the same sitcom with a beer in your hand. You know, it's like there's so much life out there. There's so much that you can do. You can volunteer, you can help other soldiers. You know, look at all the ways that you can express yourself that have power in the world and that are so creative. So growing is like, it's that counterintuitive side of a marriage, but it's critical for both parties.
Yeah, I'm going to just add to that that the marriage itself stands to benefit, because the marriage will only grow to the extent that you grow. It will only be as healthy as what you put into it, as strong as what you put into it. It's not like, what will my marriage do for me? It's, how can I feed my marriage, our marriage?
Yeah, I love that. Ana, thank you for that. It's funny because Stu and I have really been focusing on bringing groups of men together, a particular group of men together, to try to do this growth, focus on growth and being better. But one of the things that you highlighted that I love so much is that activity, the growth through the activity and the new experiences, and some of the things that we're looking at are that's mandatory. That's going to be mandatory is fun, and creating opportunities for us as men to get together. And it's going to be a core value. It's not going to be conferences and marriage counseling and all this stuff. Those might be elements of it, but it's going to be get together, go out in the woods and just do something fun and be men, be boys, right? One of my favorite things, and some people look at it, and then someone made a joke yesterday to my wife, but my wife always said we had to have kids so that my husband has somebody to play with, because he's a giant child. and yesterday great. I was throwing snowballs over my wife and one of the other moms as we were walking back in a beautiful Colorado day from the bus stop. And the other woman turned around. She's like, which one of your children, to include your husband, is throwing these snowballs over us? And it was me. But I love how you frame that, because those things that you do, while they can be characterized as fun and maybe even a hall pass to go to the mountains, they're growth minded. They're activities that make you more full, more rich, and they bring life to your marriage because you're getting better. And I think people miss, especially in a marriage, they miss the opportunity to continue to grow as individuals, to bring more to the marriage. They like you said, they sit and watch the sitcoms and they kind of die a slow death instead of enriching their marriage through very intentional activities, through very intentional secrets, and very intentional ways to grow themselves. And there's so much beauty in that counterintuitive secret of growth. I just really appreciate you guys sharing that, because I think people need to hear it and give themselves permission to be the best versions of themselves, so they can bring that into the marriage, into their home, as a father, as a mother. And that's just it's such an amazing thing that you guys are bringing out. So thank you for that.
Well, nicely said.
Yeah. And it's so easy to drop to the side. I mean, I see it with women sometimes who will focus totally on raising children. And then when the children leave the nest, she's like heartbroken and doesn't know who she is. And there's no need for that to be the truth. Especially if parents are really co-parenting. It's like, it's wonderful when a father plays with his kids, because it's what they need and want. I mean, mom is home with them, or, juggling all kinds of things, from dentist appointments and doctor's appointments. And, it's not to be sexist about who does what, but to say that, kids need that. And they also need adults who model that they're still continuing to grow.
Yeah.
Because when they see you as an adult learning a new language at 30, or deciding to take up a new avocation, completely new, something that you're very interested in. I mean, we have a couple of friends who have started a marriage ministry, and their marriage ministry has become like a really passionate thing for both of them. But for her, it's a real, it's just really a passion. And so they're growing like crazy. They're learning so much. They're interviewing interesting people all the time. And yeah, those are the things that your children need to see. They need to see that you're growing.
Super cool.
Yeah, there's this easy sort of misunderstanding, misconstruence that people can get into, which is, I'm sacrificing happiness in my life for the sake of the children. And there's something to be said for sacrifice for the sake of your kids. You do a lot for your kids that stretch you and that are not always easy. Of course, we do anything for our kids. At the same time, this idea that I'm going to sacrifice myself for the sake of the kids, that often ends up hurting the kids even more, because if you starve yourself, it's like when the plane is going down, they tell you fasten your seatbelt and put the oxygen mask on yourself first.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you'll be no good to anybody. Your instinct is put the mask on the kids. No, put the mask on yourself. Well, life is like that. You've got to oxygenate yourself. You've got to grow yourself, or you're no good to your kids. Your kids, as Anna's saying, you've got to give them a model of what it's like to be a fully realized human being who's continuing to grow and thrive and nourish and explore and be curious. That's what your kids need from you.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah. So speaking of marriage ministry, and I know you both are starting some marriage workshops, and you're starting a coaching program, and both of you are wanting to get these marriage workshops into the churches. Can you talk about that a little bit, and tell us about what that looks like?
Absolutely. We love to teach. The two of us have both been teachers at different times in our lives. I used to teach at the college level. And so we really love these 5 principles, and we think that they are things that people can put into action in their marriages. So we're teaching workshops that are on Zoom that allow, a bunch of people to be in the same room and to get a really specific training on the 5 secrets, where we can do a deep dive. I mean, there's not enough time in an hour to really cover it all unless we just go secret by secret by secret and really dive deep. But these are about 2 to 2.5 hour long workshops, but you can do them from your home. You can sign up for them on our website. We run them for 10 to 35 people. And that way, when it fills up and we've got 10, we run them, and people can get in and take the workshop. We also, the second part of the workshop is Q&A. And we really we put a lot of emphasis on that, because people always have questions like, what about this? This is happening in my marriage, and I want to understand, how can I shift this? And if you really look at the 5 secrets, every single time there's something that will apply to whatever's going on. Every now and then we do say to someone, it would be really good for you to see a professional. The two of you need to see a counselor, if there's anything serious going on. But so those are the workshops. The coaches training program starts in the fall, and people can sign up now. We have financing programs so that people can finance it. It's a pretty intensive training in how to coach people. And that way, what we're hoping to do is create lots and lots of coaches all across the country and across the world that are able to coach others, so that they can do what we do, which is talk to clients and help them.
I'd like to just add a point to the workshops piece, which is, I want to make sure that we make it clear that it is, it is Living the 5 Secrets workshop, and it's not, you don't have to be a couple to attend. It's not only for married people, it's also for singles, or it can be one member of a couple, or it can be people who aren't married or in a couple but would like to be in a relationship, or it's for anybody really. And part of the idea there, and this is an idea that's expressed in the book, is that some of the most powerful work we do, and I know that in Anna's career, some of the most powerful work she does is with one person, one member of the couple, not with both in a room. With both in a room, frequently that can devolve into a scorekeeping session of who did what wrong and what's wrong with you, and who is more at fault, who bears more of the responsibility for this mess we're describing to our therapist. Oh, our time is up. I'm so sorry. And what can be a lot more fruitful is to have one person in the room and have it really be about coaching. Because in truth, when you work on a marriage, you don't work on the marriage, you work on yourself. That's how you work in the marriage. Because you can't change the other person. You can change yourself. You can grow yourself. So the workshop, yes, married couples are certainly welcome in the workshop, but it's not a place for group therapy where we're going to have couples start hashing out their he said, she said in front of a Zoom audience. It's very positively oriented, skills oriented. Here's a situation. Here's what we can do to grow in that.
And also, we made it very affordable, because we don't believe in we really believe that a lot of people are struggling. The pandemic has changed the reality of finances across the country. And so we really want it to be something that's accessible for people. So if they go to our website, which is gogivermarriage.com, all one word, there's a site, there's a page with our programs, and people can sign up directly there. They can also contact us if they've read the book. We love feedback. We love to hear what you're thinking. We will always answer your letters, and they go directly to the two of us.
Well, we love the book. It was amazing.
Yay.
Love the book.
Yeah.
We
Ana and
loved
John.
writing it, I'll tell you.
No, we can tell. It was.
It's it's our love letter to the world, really, and it's in many ways it's also a love letter to each other. We're really thrilled to be able to chat with you guys about it.
Yeah, well, thank you so much for coming on. This was a pleasure for sure. We really enjoyed this conversation. We love the book, and we hope that our entire audience goes and buys the book. It comes out March 8th. Is that correct?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay, March 8th.
If they pre-order, there's special gifts that they get from us. Master classes that are pre-recorded about diffusing anger and other really cool gifts. So
super cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we're gonna put the website in the show notes. David, you got anything else?
Yeah, no, I just want to encourage both of you. I can't, and I don't typically, there's not. I guard the things that, Stu and I guard the things that we intake. And I can honestly tell you that the Go Giver series, so the Go Giver itself was hugely formative. It was extremely important to Stuart and I. It really changed the way that, I thought of things. It was very much akin to, for a lot of investors, Rich Dad, Poor Dad is like the book that brings them in. It changes the way that they think about things. Well, I'll tell you, Go Giver was more impactful, because it wasn't about investing and changing a mindset. It was about changing the way that I look at life. And I'll tell you, this book is incredible. I mean, I was telling you guys before we started recording that, as I'm consuming the pages, it's taking me a while, because I'm being convicted in my heart on my marriage and how I should, treat my wife, treat my children, how my responsibility to be better for them will grow the marriage, the relationship, how I should be a better business partner. And it's really, really tempting to think of how Stu should be better, but that's not the point of the book. The book is how can I?
Hey, you gotta believe. You gotta believe in your partner.
You gotta believe. You gotta believe. But I know that everything you guys put out is it's changing lives, and you will not know until you get to heaven how many lives you've touched and how many people have been impacted by your book. But I can tell you that it's significant. And it warms my heart, not only to read it, but also to be on this podcast with you guys, and just knowing the impact that I know you're making in circles that you will never know, never understand, unless they have the courage to reach out to you. So I just, on behalf of those that maybe are too shy to reach out, I want to affirm you and tell you that it is hugely powerful. You guys are amazing. I love the book. I love you guys. It's great having you back on, John. And anything you put out, I told you this before, anything that has John David Mann on the cover, I'm going to read it. So I appreciate you guys.
You guys have a generous spirit.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Well, guys and gals, go pre-order the book so you can get all the good stuff. Yeah. We'll put it on the show notes. Comes out March 8th, and go check it out. Share this podcast episode, please. Screenshot. Hey, buy the book for a friend, give it out as a gift. And most importantly, go fill your storehouse.
Hey, make it a great day, friends. Thank you, John. Thank you, Ana. Have a great day. Thanks for listening to Filling the Storehouse. If you enjoyed our show, please subscribe and share it with someone you love. And if you really felt inspired, leave a 5-star review so we could continue to grow and help other Christian entrepreneurs fill their storehouse. If you're interested in creating financial freedom through real estate investing, be sure to check out our website at storehouse310turnkey.com. We'd love to serve you through our platform of building the kingdom. Just click on the contact link and we'll reply to you as soon as we can. Again, thanks so much for listening. Now go fill your storehouse and make it a great day.